I'm Anaiis Salles. This is 22 and You podcast, and we're in a special series now for young people that I'm calling Pouring into Pause because I live in the United States. It's 2026, it's March, and right now there's an awful lot of confusion and chaos going on, and it's a difficult thing for families to discuss. People have different ideas, people have different values, people have different opinions, and lots of people have different judgments. But not all that many of us have discernment. So I want to share with you what it's like to have discernment when you allow your DNA to inform your body by way of intuition, by way of emotional neutrality. And when you're a young person, this is really difficult to come by because you're still developing not only your physical body, but you're developing your emotional body too. And one of the things I learned growing up, 100% unicorn, right here. Yeah, I'm a purple people. If you like the color purple, you're probably carrying some unicorn DNA in your body. And I'd like to help you understand that and help your parents understand that. Maybe one of your teachers understand that if he or she or they happens to watch this podcast, because it's really important right now. From my perspective, and I have a lot of it, and I'm sharing my story so that people can be aware of the possibilities of perspective that are so unicorn, so different, and so joyful in terms of peace, purpose, and power. And what this series is going to be a lot about is learning how to pause, pouring into pause, Pause, so that you can retain a sense of calm and peace and purpose and power in your body and in your life, no matter how old you are. So, in the first episode that I recorded, you'll see an image of me that's just a picture because transitions can be challenging. And making this transition to use my podcast in this way at this time was a challenge that I said, okay, we're just going to do it. So this is the second of the podcast interviews, and I'm going to share a different story, but the basis for sharing the stories is so you can understand how much is possible for you as a solo human being, as a human being in a family, as a human being who is a friend, as a human being who is a parent, as a human being who is curious and aware that you, especially if you're a unicorn, are having experiences that other people don't have, that other people who, because they don't have them, they don't want you to have them because they don't want to know that having them is possible. They want to argue with about you about that or call you crazy. I'm here to make sure you know that you're not crazy. I live with that most of my life, and I'm not crazy. I'm an example of the human being of the future, in which many of these challenges, not knowing about your own energy field, not knowing about your own power, and how to use it has nothing to do with any kind of an implement or holding anything in your hands to be powerful. Yeah, I like that part. That's really a lot of fun. I like to teach that in my courses and classes. So in the first episode, I introduced you, my audience, and you may be anywhere from ages 12 to ages 20, depending on your level of creativity and all kinds of different things. But if you found this to listen to, I say you're very lucky because that means someone sees you, someone recognizes you as a unicorn, as a purple power person, as an indigo, indigo child. So I'm here for you to share a framework of how you learn to pour into pause. So as you become more grounded in your peace, your purpose, and your power, you will be comfortable taking the time and space and energy that you need from the environment that you're in, not from other people, to get yourself sorted so that you're fully awake, aware, and empowered to make really great choices, so that you live long and prosper, so that you can make more and more good choices, then expand your circle and cycle of your life purpose to include more and more people and more of the energy being that is this planet that we all stand on and walk around on and ride our bikes and cars and, never really being aware of what this planet really is. It's a conscious being just like you are, just a really good one. So I'm going to continue today because those of you who are unicorns are curious. And I know in cultures that I've been a part of, I'm going to take a moment of silence for the siren right now in case it's audible. Yeah, people get hurt. And I want to talk to you about the early part of being a unicorn so you can self-identify, or you can say, oh no, that's not me, and move on. So here's a little bit of information, and I'm reading from my book. You can just lay back and relax, stretch out on your back, tuck a pillow under your neck, put your legs up, or just relax and fully listen with your entire body from your toes to the top of your head. And notice what you hear, feel, sense, and are aware of as you listen. It's part of pouring yourself into pause. Your early years, the environment of your conception of how you got to be born with your mom and your dad and their ancestral stories, and even alternative incarnations, past lives, and multi-dimensional time matrix clusters. And if this is news to you, it might be news to your parents. I doubt it's news to you if you're a unicorn. Clusters of hundreds of incarnations that pass through you like a breeze with energy, with an aroma, like the smell of a pie baking that's like, oh, I want to go have some of that. Your past lives can arrive to you through a sense of smell, and they can trigger your memory, and that memory is in your DNA. And that's why this podcast is called 22 and You. The hidden power in your unique DNA is the name of my book. The first part of which is the living spiral of transformation. Okay, enough about that. So there are 5 life core issues, and issue by issue, you are able to further explore energy centers 1 through 7 that are you. They're invisible to you, but they're there and they're real. You can sometimes feel a message from them through a tingle or a shiver in your body. And that's a message coming from the invisible part of you to the visible part of you. And you should pay attention to those shivers and tingles. They're full of information. It's not just about cold or heat. Now, I'm not going to go into the energy centers here because that may be something that your parents want to do with you. But if you do want to know about that, look in the show notes, you and your family, or just you if you're old enough to make a decision as an adult or young adult to learn. There'll be a link for you to find out more about what I do and how I teach about energy centers that are a part of all of you, especially if you're a unicorn. And we unicorns, we know who we are because we're not like anybody else. And we tend to hide out and keep our mouths shut and try to blend into the background because we just don't know how to manage being a unicorn. So when you're young, and this starts very early, it started for me when I was born, but for most kids, it starts 3, 4, 5 years of age. And as you're interacting with other people and your parents, you're being aware of stuff. You are noticing things, and you may not have the language for it, but you're aware. Now, if things are going well, and I hope they go well for you, as you grow, you embrace each life phase gradually, and I'm reading from my book now, coming face to face with the joy of knowing that you're loved and the wounds that come now and then of not feeling loved, accepted unconditionally, believing maybe that you are not lovable, or believing that you've been loved inappropriately. And right now in the United States, it is the year 2026, and there is a lot of news and international brouhaha and conflict that is going on around the core life issue of not being loved appropriately. Primarily, the core of this life issue as a global situation is applicable to women and young women, and especially beautiful young women. So we take the fruits of our explorations and our energetic scars that start when we're young, and we bring them into an active but relaxed relationship that is learning to align your energy bodies with the core elements of your being, a conscious co-creator and a conscious co-creation. So, quick moment, 22 in You podcast is about my 6 pillars: creativity, connection, culture, communication, collaboration, and community. And you actually have all that going on in the singular human embodiment that is you. So there we go there. Now you know what the podcast is all about. And everything I do anchors into one or more of those 6 pillars. 6 pillars. Well, sometimes sex is included when we get older. So here is a unicorn lesson that we're shifting. Right now, for most human beings, the experience being human on planet Earth has slipped into your greatest wound, or the way you have been most hurt becomes your greatest gift, or it becomes the threshold and the opening of a doorway through which you're able to recognize your greatest gift. And your greatest gift is the core of your peace, your power, and your purpose. It's not about pain, but at this particular time in the year 2026, the emphasis is on pain rather than on peace, rather than on purpose, rather than on power being expressed as peace, purpose, and power without pain. So you're lucky because you're a unicorn who's stepping forward in time with me. And I couldn't be I couldn't be happier that you're here. I really couldn't, because you're the ones. You're the ones. And if you're a unicorn, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, what are these life issues? That we learn through our bodies? So these 5 templates, or stencils, because they're stencils in our energy centers, they're like badges. They're like those wonderful puzzles that you draw a crayon through to find your way from the beginning through the puzzle to the end. Sometimes those present in circles, and that's a very natural kind of image to work with, and I hope you get to get lots of experience with those. I did as a kid. They were terrific. So what are those 5 puzzles or templates that correspond to the parts of you that are in flow, that have structure, like your nose, like your eyes, like your fingers, like your toes. They just happen to be energy first and foremost, so you can't see them unless you develop a different kind of sight. And I have that kind of sight. I can see people's energy. It's totally, totally radical. The 5 basic issues all human beings on planet Earth encounter as physical learning experiences, emotional learning experiences, psychological learning experiences, spiritual learning experiences, physical learning experiences. Vulnerability, which has to do with your primary energy center. Interdependence, which has to do with your secondary energy center, associated with a part of your body. I'm not going into that now because I may not, and you may not have your parents' permission, but there'll be a note in the show note where you can find out more. Don't worry. The third is fear, which has an association with a certain part of your body. Most people feel that in the solar plexus, and people are okay talking about the solar plexus. So I'm comfortable using that word. People feel that. So they're okay talking about it. There are parts of the solar plexus that are invisible, but I'm not going to go there right now. The fourth basic issue has to do with, do you feel loved or not loved or rejected or accepted? That has to do with trust. Not rust, trust. And the fifth life issue is when all of those things are in balance in your body, in your energy field, because you've learned how to balance them. There's the experience of pleasure and joy, wonderful, wonderful creativity in all kinds of forms, including business, including science, including technology. And these become the core of how you learn to live your life, grounded and centered in peace, purpose, and power. That's what this series is going to be all about. So I want you to try to imagine that every energy center in your body is an element of a subtle energy body that just isn't visible at this point to human eyesight, except for unicorns. We can see the energy. So if you're a unicorn, you see energy and you know it. So like, for instance, I'll tell you, when I love to play this game with my cousins when I was, 6, 7, 8 years old. We would play this game where we would take colored squares, red, yellow, blue, green, orange, lots of colors, and we'd leave one side of the card white and one side of the card would have a color, and we would lay them face down so you couldn't see the colors. And then the game was to guess. Pick a card and try to guess what color it was on the back. It's a fun game. It was super fun for me because I always won. Why? Because I could see the color on the back of the card, on the other side of the card, and my cousins couldn't. And it made them so mad when I guessed right every time, and I would just laugh. And they would say, "How do you do that? How do you do that?" And I wouldn't tell them. There would have been no point. I couldn't teach it to them then. So why frustrate them? But I did have lots of good giggles out of playing that game. There are lots of games that I was terrible at playing, like Hide the Belt. We won't even talk about that game. So your subtle energy body is an absolutely 24/7 and more creative cauldron. Chaos, stability, creativity, transformation, regeneration, renewal, all being refined through your DNA and what you've inherited in your DNA and what you're going to activate on your own as you grow and mature. Now, a lot of this happens through what we call frequency. And today, frequency is not a dirty word. Magic might not be a word in your family wants to hear you talk about. Spirituality might not be a word that your family wants to hear you talk about, but frequency? Anybody who has a cell phone understands that the cell phone works and you can talk to each other on cell phones because of frequencies that are emitted from cell phone tower within a certain range that can then be picked up by your cell phone. Okay, so let's just make that really clear right now. In some ways, my dear, every one of us is a cell phone. We're just unaware of where our frequencies are coming from or where the cell towers are located. And that's one of the reasons for me doing that podcast, because I love to teach people that you are a conscious, aware being. If you want to, you can function like a cell phone. You can function like a television set. You can function like a movie theater, but not if you don't know how. Okay, back to the topic. So energy all around us all the time, right? You breathe oxygen, you can't see it. You don't have to see it to breathe it. If you can't breathe it and you can't see it, you're no longer alive. So that's one form of energy that we can all agree on exists. It's all around us. We cannot see it with our visible eyes. We can see reflections of it, but we can't see it. Okay, so all right, now we're on square one. The same is true of frequency. Frequency is like oxygen. It's all around you. It exists, and it can be manipulated and used, and it is, to disrupt, to disturb, or to override your DNA birthright energy, to destroy the integrated structure of your own consciousness, your awareness of yourself, what I call your kaleidoscope of awareness, your quantum field. If you want to know about your quantum field, just check out YouTube and type in CERN. You'll get a lot of information about quantum fields. Now, the energy field, which you perceive as thoughts, one band of frequency, feelings, another band, emotion, another bandwidth, physical body, a very, very visible, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can play with it, bandwidth. All of these come together to form what you know of as 3D reality. Not AI reality, actual physical reality that has touch and feel, can hug you with a warm human body through which blood is passing, that has a beating heart. Yeah, we want to make sure we are aware of what it is to be human. That's an important distinction these days, and what is real and what is not real. So when you activate your diverse, unique DNA through choosing to be in a conscious relationship with it, well, I'm getting a message. Cynthia Aldris is saying, I love your I elevated all of Monday. Yeah, we had a great time on Sunday listening to poetry. So here's some information for you. A little feedback. Bit of an interruption, but still feedback. It's on the wavelength. It's responding to frequency. It's responding to the frequency I'm generating here. So with your diverse, unique DNA, choosing to be in conscious relationship with it, which I can't teach you now, I can just describe it to you, and you can feel it for yourself as you're learning how to pour into pause on your own free time. So in that state, you're empowered to create yourself brand new in the now moment, which is all time is happening now. You don't have to get caught into the past, and you don't have to go too far forward into the future. Staying in the now is a really good thing. Lots of choices in the now. So you can create yourself anew in your alignment with your birthright DNA template, or you can change your birthright DNA template. I've done this for years. I teach other people how to do it. If you're a unicorn, you want to sort out what you want to keep and what you might want to transform. So you're empowered to heal all of you at the core of your cellular function. You simply need to learn how. Well, this time of learning is upon us. And we are taking baby steps instead of quantum leaping. Some of us quantum leap. I'm a quantum leaper. Into new frequency paradigms, which will be exciting and bear wonderful new information for you to the degree which you have the peace, power, and purpose to choose to override your autonomic and sympathetic neurological structures in your body. Yes, unicorns can do this, and you know that you can do this. So you can transform, resolve, release the power that a very particular nerve that was introduced into the human body called the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve has a lot of power over your life. And making redundant this neurological control over your fight or flight response, protect or connect response, these are reactions. It's not unlike your appendix with a purpose that is now historical and anatomical artifact and nothing more. But when your appendix acts up, you got to do something about it. Yeah, I've had my appendix out, but I did it by choice. I actually created that circumstance because of what was going on, but that's another story. I'm not telling that story today. And the appendix can flare and cause physiological harm. The flare can kill you if you don't know what to do about it and get medical, physical help for your physical body, like a surgery, like I did. And yes, surgical interventions for a ruptured appendix are life-saving and with a relatively quick recovery period. 2 weeks, you're probably going to be out walking around again without a lot of discomfort. So yes, your conscious relationship with your diverse, unique DNA is meant to empower you to release all quantum entanglements. That's like you walking into a giant spider web that you couldn't see, and the spider that you couldn't see, and finding yourself trapped in that giant entanglement, and you don't and can't free yourself. That's usually because of ancestral DNA unconsciously activated in you. It's generating that kind of blindness to feeling, because if you can't see a spider web, you ought to be able to feel it with your body so that you back up, walk out, and you don't mess with the spider. That means that some of your junk genes are still asleep, and you'll wake them up. You'll learn how. So here, what I want to share with you now, you've probably maybe heard reference to chicken soup for the soul. Making art is how you first learn how to cook. Creativity is your first I'm learning how to cook resource. Making mud pies, playing with Play-Doh, coloring with crayons, learning how to use a pair of scissors, working with glue and your parents will let you. And finally, actually taking all of that, understanding how things can work together to make something new. And if you had a mom like me, you'll be taught and learn how to cook safely at a very early age. And it's super empowering to do that. So, chicken soup for the soul. No, until I was an adolescent, I didn't know there was a specific term for the peace that I felt sitting quietly beside a burbling stream, or laying down on a plush carpet of wild green and reading in a secret sacred spot that I'd find out in the woods. I only knew that that way of being alone in nature was essential to my well-being and my enjoyment of making art, of being creative. Those two things went hand in hand for me. They may be hand in hand in a different way for you, and I invite you to find out. So I want to talk about the first universal life issue, which is vulnerability. Radiance, differentiation, allowing, making space for, expanding, and being able to receive are part of vulnerability when it's in balance and operating in harmony. Now, when it's not operating in harmony and your vulnerability is feeling a little bit challenged in your body and in your energy field, you go into diffusion as leaving or checking out. You withdraw your consciousness into your head and withdraw it from the rest of your body so that you're more focused on thinking than on feeling. That's defensive in a lot of people. More people can think than they can feel. That's being out of balance. Now, the life phase, when we are most vulnerable and we have a lot of things to discover and we hope we live through it, is from conception, from the moment you're conceived and you're bouncing around in your mother's uterus, to 12 weeks of age in the human infant. Those are your most vulnerable life periods. When you come out okay and you survive those first 12 weeks, you got a good chance of growing into why. What is the reason? What is the DNA? Why? The purpose for your having been conceived and born in the first place? Every one of us has a purpose. Our job is to figure out what it is and to live it. So that's important information for you right now. And I want to make sure that we take some time to ask some questions, because in the first episode, I talked about the storm. So finding inner shelter in any number of ways so that you can emerge from the storm, like we're having all around us now on the planet Earth in 2026, leads to your having the experience of more. I am me. I will be me. I become, I live, I love. My consciousness expanding within me so that I can meet you where you are as another human being, or as an animal, or as a plant, right? All these life forms. So the things you want to think about when you're going to pour into pause is, I am, I will, I become. And those are essential to the next part, which is I choose. So I have workbooks and journals that you can access, and there'll be information in the show notes about how you get a hold of those. And when you get the workbook, or even if you want to just use your journal for these exercises, you can do this on your own. Get an empty journal and just label it the storm. And when you recognize that you're in a storm in your life, whether it's for a day or an hour, or a long time, this can happen sometimes in families and circumstances like war, you want to answer these questions. You want to answer them from a sense of your body being really truthful. What happened? What did you observe happened from where you were in the place of the happening that is known as your perspective? Who else was present beside you? What did you feel? Was anyone in a position to help if you needed help? Who helped? Did a stranger or a friend or family member step up to assist you in your storm? How long did this situation last? What changes happened in the event? Did you have to leave any part of yourself or anything that belonged to you behind to get from vulnerability to safety? If so, what was that? Was that a feeling? Was that a thing? Was that a place? Was that a person? How did you feel about that, having to let go of something that maybe you valued, or maybe you were like, oh, good riddance, I never want to see you again? what was the immediate outcome of this experience of you being in a storm? Big one, small one, medium-sized one, you know when you're in one. Could be as simple and easy to happen as getting stung by a bee. Trust me, when you get stung by a bee, that's a storm for your physical body. And for some people, that's life-threatening. Some people are allergic to bee stings, right? So being aware and paying attention and knowing and really noticing how your body feels is super important. Super important. How quickly or slowly did recovery take place? Was your loss temporary or permanent? How did you feel about it? And your family group feel about it, if they even know about it. So for you, what was the immediate outcome of this experience of being in a storm? What changes in you did you recognize as being beneficial for you in the long term? Finding out you're allergic to bee stings or a food or having any kind of really serious allergic reaction. Knowing this and knowing what to avoid, absolutely beneficial to you in the long term. And what distressing experiences or joyful experiences led to your surrendering to the DNA transformational experience of being more you than you were a second before, a minute before, an hour before you were called into a life issue. Now, in this, we're talking about vulnerability. I think I'll save some of what's in my book here and move to another opportunity because most of you, even being very unicorn, may not be ready to look at what could be called other incarnations, other lifetimes. And I have a very powerful story that happened with one of my children. I had a very powerful dream about my younger son. And in the dream, someone wearing a simple white toga, Roman attire, came to me, holding my son, who looked very listless and ill. And he said to me, "Your child is going to be very sick." I woke up startled from that dream, all of my senses on high alert. And I could not go back to sleep. It took really a long time for me to just relax again because I knew the dream was a message and then I needed to get prepared. So in many ways, my physical and emotional and the vulnerability in me was getting prepared for what was going to be a vulnerability in my childhood. I didn't know what it was going to be. So what happened? The next day was a Sunday, and our family had no special plans for the day other than helping my older son Seth put up a few posters on his bedroom walls. So I left my partner then, the man in my life, and the father of my second younger son, in my older son's bedroom to, be the adult in the room as I went downstairs in the kitchen to make breakfast for all of us. So I left him assuming that he would keep an eye on both boys and still be available to help hands-on with my older son as needed. But for some inexplicable reason, he couldn't explain it. There wasn't any excuse for it. My partner put our younger son, a toddler, he was under 2 years old, on the top bunk of my older son's bunk beds and then turned around and left him unsupervised. To this day, I cannot account for my partner's choice to leave my son and his child, toddler, unattended on the top bunk, other than the choice being an unconscious trigger in him, which perhaps every one of us in our family needed to create a set of circumstances and challenges of bringing a storm into our lives. Well, while I was downstairs stirring pancake mix in the kitchen counter, I heard my baby scream. I bolted upstairs to find him flat on his back on the floor. My partner hadn't moved to pick him up and comfort him either, which I found very, very strange. He was standing over Max with a stunned look on his face rather than having scooped him up in his arms to comfort him. I want you to pay attention to this, because there are two types of people. At the very core, there are two types, and you need to be aware of who's around you. One type is the person who doesn't respond appropriately. And if you've listened to the first of podcasts in this series, that was my mother. And now here, I'm describing that again as my partner. Did not respond appropriately. Max had a stunned look on his face. He was in pain. He didn't know what had happened to him. Dropped and hurt. I got down on my hands and knees and pulled him into my arms. I asked Seth and my partner, what happened? He fell off the top bunk, my partner replied, as if he had nothing to do with the pain that our son was in. Well, how did he get on the top bunk? I had to ask. Part of your peace, purpose, and power is always being in the truth. Well, I put him there for a minute so I could help Seth. You could have just as easily put him in his crib or on the floor or called me to come up. I was not happy, and I communicated this with my partner. I communicated to this. And I felt at that moment that I would have loved to have punched him in the face for being so senseless and dumb. But I doubt that would have changed anything. I was beginning to see a side of this person that I was distressed about. Fortunately, Max landed flat on his back and he didn't break his neck or anything else. He was very lucky. He was dazed, confused, but he was consolable. Now I was aware of the dream again. But hadn't I done the same thing in another incarnation? Done something really stupid? Not paid attention or considered the possible long-term consequences of being inattentive to a baby who was mobile enough to get into serious trouble in seconds? Now, I don't need to read the rest of it because I lived it. And I only want to take an hour for these recordings, but I will tell you. The next day, my son was very sick. And as circumstances unfolded, I was on such high alert that I paid very close attention to him because I wanted us to have choices. I wanted to know exactly what was going on. I wanted to know exactly what hurt him. And I found this out when I took him out of the bathtub and he started screaming when I started wiping him with a towel. I'm not sharing this with you to frighten you. From the ages of conception to, what did I say? Right? 12 weeks of age minimum to 12 years of age as a young child about to go into adolescence. This is the most vulnerable time of your life for so many reasons that none of us, all of us, can be entirely in control of. But this is about you noticing if you're a person who has a caring response when you see someone else being hurt. If it disturbs you or distresses you or makes you cry or hurts your heart or gives you the feeling, oh my God, not only do you in the circumstances, if it's safe for you, you go running in to help. This is the kind of person that is a fireman. Yeah? Or woman. Yeah? Or a doctor. Yeah? Or a nurse. Because the feeling that they have is, I want to help you not be hurt and in pain. This is being human 101. Being a boy, being a girl, being he, she, they, I don't care. Being a man, being a woman. This is compassion. This is empathy. This is sympathy. So between now and the next podcast, I'm going to ask you to notice, to be aware of what kind of person you are. And you can think of things that have happened to you in your life already where you were in a situation where you saw someone being hurt. What was your response? Maybe your mom burned her finger on the stove. Maybe your little brother fell down and scraped his knee. What was your response? What did your impulse here want you to do in that moment? So, this is really important information for you because depending on how old you are right now as you're listening to this, or depending on who you're listening with, this is an opportunity for you to be aware and to have a choice to discover a part of you that needs development, that needs more development, that needs more curiosity. Why don't I feel like I want to help someone who's in pain? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not disabled in any way. I can hear, I can see, I can feel. Why don't I have that response? Now, here's where you have a choice. Because I'm asking you not to make you feel bad about yourself. I'm asking you because you can discover by making a choice to listen to this podcast and making the choice to be honest with how you feel, to go, oh, wow, guess I'm not going to grow up to be a fireman. And you'll begin to remember the events that you've been in, situations where people have been hurt, and you've ignored it, walked away, not responded, stood around and watched. If you know this is true about you, then you can make the choice to discover what is going on with you and ask yourself, what if I can make some choices that allow me to be a person who feels the need to help? Or if I can't find that feeling in me, to never put me in a situation where my mind is telling me that I could be helpful, but I could not actually do that job. That's important information for you. And you need to find it out. And you need to find it out while you're still young, because that means you'll have more and better choices. Like, if you can't help someone who's in a house on fire, maybe the best you can do is make a call to the fire department. That's a form of helping. Okay, so I think this is about time. It feels like about the time for me to stop talking. And this will be me speaking to you. The first episode is a picture of me for reasons that have to do with frequency, and I'm not going to go into now. But I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for watching and listening with someone you care about. Could be a friend, could be a family member. Maybe this is information you want to bring to a teacher in your school or at your church. Please do. Let them know my name, Anaiis Salles. Let them know the name of the podcast, 22 in You. Let them know the name of my business, which is Living Lessons Library. You know, maybe you remember, maybe you won't, but it'll be there. And if you're watching this podcast, you know, you're probably old enough to ask someone, hey, You know what? This is really interesting. I want to watch this again. And let's go look at the show notes because there's some stuff in there I think I want to find out more about, like the journal or the workbook, or, you know, or I think my teacher should listen to this, or I think dad should listen to this, or, you know, babysitter should listen to this. That's one of the purposes. Why? Creativity, connection, culture, communication, collaboration, community. These are my 6 pillars of living a life of peace, purpose, and power. You got to learn how to do it. Some of us, it comes a little bit more naturally. If you're a unicorn, that'll be true. But the rest of us, the rest of you guys, you gotta learn it if you want to have a happy, happy life. And really, that's what we're here for ultimately. To be loved, to be loving, to be happy, to be joyful, to be creative, and to live in community in ways where we nurture and support each other and have strong, healthy boundaries that include absolutely knowing when to say no with so much power that no one dares to defy you in a healthy way, because you're going to help, not because you're saying no to establish a boundary, because you want the power to hurt and harm. Okie dokie. I hope you'll tune into the next episode.
Here are my notes, my preparations for today. This is off the cuff. It's not even funny. I used to be a chronic stutterer, so I kind of know what it feels like. I just spend so much time with pro speakers, international keynote speakers, people playing at a higher level that I just kind of forgot the general population. Now I know. The name of my website is nextlevelpublicspeaking.com. It says on the name. Okay, so it says right here, right? It just says here, nextlevelpublicspeaking.com. Okay. Anaiis has spent some time in the academy, right? The mindset stuff, mindset piece. It's a bit next level. So I apologies for having forgotten this. I got a bunch of stuff. I got workbooks for you. I got videos for you. I got gifts for you. I got money for you. Plus anything you want.